Today, Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy announced his retirement from the court after more than 30 years of being in office following his nomination by President Reagan. He is known as the swing vote, as in many of the decisions tend to have him as the person who changes their mind. And Trump's appointment of another person to the Supreme Court, who is believed to be as conservative as Gorsuch, the nominee from last year, was confirmed, is causing shockwaves and fear and panic. Let me say hello to Dirk. The saddest thing, as I pointed out, I think it was the day before yesterday when I actually no yesterday when I was talking about the Supreme Court and its influence, is that a lot of times when people are watching these presidential election cycles go by, that becomes an issue that just completely disappears and is nowhere near the forefront of their mind. Um, and it's becoming even more scary when you think of the fact that we're talking about people who are in their 70s, 80s, that quite frankly are in the latter part of their life, to put it, fairly. Um, and the fact that we have individuals who don't think that's a big deal. I don't know what else to tell you. It's just that is something people need to pay more attention to. But it becomes kind of hard because if I sit here and I go, oh, in this case he swung the vote here, in this case he swung the vote there. A lot of people won't tune in and listen to that. But if you tell them to go read it, they won't even open that book. So basically, it turns into either way you try to get people to understand what's going on, it gets rejected or otherwise pushed back or pushed away. But it is what it is. It really sucks because I wanted to talk about the New York results with Crowley getting knocked out by Cortez, but I couldn't because this story literally broke as I was planning to go live about 20-30 minutes ago, and I had to do some other things. So it didn't turn out the way I planned or intended. And I assure you, it would have been a much more positive and upbeat stream if I could just come on here and talk about the progressive that defeated the corrupt politician. But instead, we have to discuss an issue that a lot of people are not going to, take to heart. They just say, "Oh, man is retiring from court after decades. What's the big deal?" Um, and it's scary when you think of the fact that we're talking about. I mean, just imagine all the laws that have been passed or otherwise um, put into a position of notoriety and officialness, if that's even a word, from the Supreme Court. Brown versus Board of Education, legalizing same-sex marriage, uh, Dred Scott. Okay, Dirk says, what did he vote when it came to the most recent case? I'd have to look it up. I can't look something up when I'm holding the camera. But he's known as the maverick judge, and actually despises being called the swing vote, a mantle he took up after O'Connor retired back in, I think it was 2005, one of those years. But yeah, I couldn't answer that question, Dirk. I'd have to go and look it up. So uh, I also don't want to just end the stream all abruptly, but we've actually gotten to a point where literally if it's just me and one person talking, and then you say something, I say something, and it reaches that stalemate, I almost say, okay, well, we might as well just cut it out now. Um, but I wanted to make it as quickly as I could to mentioning this and why it's important. Um, you've had people who are on Twitter. One guy said that abortion is going to be the right to get it is going to be repealed in 20 states. Uh, well, Dirk, we don't know. Trump said that he has a list of 25 individuals who are candidates, and one of those will be picked. The people will be nominated. You can't just appoint someone there. This isn't a Senate seat where you can appoint someone, then we can have an election a year later or a couple of months later. So that's. I hope they answered your question. But the scariest thing about the court is that once you're there, you're basically there for life. People who've been selected, for example, back in the 90s or 80s, still just are kicking on there. Dirk says, can Trump take that place? Not as an incumbent president, but it's going to be up to him to nominate an individual to replace him, to replace Kennedy. And the scariest part is that because both the Senate and the House, most particularly the Senate, is controlled by his party, we really have no reason to not believe that that person will be voted on or otherwise selected. So it's to have two vacancies in a span of less than a year, I believe, is astonishing. Um, Actually, no, I take that back. Scalia was February of 2 years ago, so this is yeah, this is 2 in 2 years, and that by itself should kind of be a referendum of why these appointments are notable and actually matter, and the people who are selected um, hold some level of value in terms of just needing to get to know who this is, what they voted for, how they vote. If this was Gorsuch retiring, 20, 30 years from now, I would say, oh, great. That means we can maybe get the court to be more, in the liberal direction. And if, someone like, I'm trying to think of a good name, but one of the liberal judges retires, like, oh, we can get a conservative and they're going to flip it on the other side. So these are choices that when you make them, they're not there for, like when you vote for Senate, for example, the person stays there for 6 years, you have a chance to get rid of them. It's a lifetime term. So the person you appointed in 2018 could still be here in 2048. And Gorsuch is really young. So Dirk says Ginsburg is 85, which is also a seat coming soon. Oh yeah, I can totally foresee that. It's just scary to think that if that happens, what, three nominees and by Trump, three appointments. Yeah, these judges are getting out of there. I don't know, Dirk. Did you ever see that Simpsons episode where uh, Ginsburg retires and she gets replaced by Ivanka? I thought it was fairly amusing. It's funny how all this news just seems to. Oh, speak of the devil, I actually can get pull up the list right now. Let's find out. Okay. We have, and we just ran into another problem. I literally don't know about any of the people that are here. What I can tell you is that from the way it looks, most of the individuals who are there are on the Supreme Court of a particular state. So you had one person, Supreme Court of Georgia, that kind of mess. Where they have legal experience, but I'd have to actually sit here and like look their name up and try to get some idea of what they've voted for and how their positions are. And I keep having this strange feeling that every single person on that list is as conservative as can be. So all in all, it sucks. But yeah, Dirk, I want to thank you for showing up. I appreciate your participation. And it's nice to know that we have at least one person who's willing to just sit there and actually hear out a story that's of significance. Um, we'll obviously have this news covered in other places. They'll get comments, but to have someone that's not beholden to, I guess, a corporation or some other group that can influence their perspective or whatever view they espouse, getting supported, I think is important. So I appreciate you, and I will have another stream maybe today, definitely tomorrow. So thank you.